I don't have any audio, I don't think. I can't hear you guys.
It's clearly they're talking.
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, for people waiting to get in. That's us.
I was like, through the back and forth, was Jeff gonna try to get here? Or was he only gonna be able to do it remotely, depending on how court went?
Yes, it is. We're not on camera, right? Okay. We're muted or unmuted?
I think they,
Are we muted? No, like, are we muted? Okay. No, I know not to talk.
Are you guys able to, when you speak, to put your mask down just so we can hear you? It is difficult to hear. I know I did the same thing when I was in there with you guys physically present and I had my mask on, but it is difficult to hear through the mask.
Get a copy of, or in the excerpt that he talks about the county, county. And did we get a written, directive from the Secretary of State on what he's allowing us to do?
No. No, just orally over the phone.
And, okay, I'll probably ask you to go over that. Okay?
Sure. Just orally.
So funny, I was just texting you about like.
This should be interesting.
they muted. Can they hear us? That's off,
Yeah.
but this isn't muted. Yeah, they can hear us.
You can start, please. It's not stapled. Yeah, we can go live, Robin?
Yes.
You ready? Okay. Let's do the pledge of allegiance, if you're ready. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will note, Mr. Wondolowski, Mr. Frost, and myself are in person, and Ms. Chappelle is attending video conference, so we have a full board here. Just get mine. I would like to, the meeting is called, and I know it's not an emergency meeting, it's just continuation of our previous meeting. We were in recess, and it was called, Mr. Wondolowski, who's a member of the board, certainly any member can ask for this board to meet, and he had asked me to discuss the Taggart County Board of Elections proposal regarding drop-off. We also included now in a personnel agenda in light of Mr. Curtis's resignation in 2 weeks, take effect in 2 weeks, and an update on the election officials' operations and precinct officials' recruitment and training. Can we talk about the agenda, personnel agenda first, Mr. Wondolowski, and then, okay. Why don't we start with that? Well, I will move to approve the personnel agenda, which it includes the sole item of Mr. Curtis's resignation letter. Is there a second? I'll second that. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any question or comment? None, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Just a
Thank
question,
you.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Do we need to move to come back into recess, from recess?
I guess so, we can. I'll take a motion. I'll move to come out of recess and into regular motion. Mr. Frost second. If there's all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Chappelle, and then I will renew my motion to approve the personnel agenda as set forth on the docket. If there's a second. Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're caught up now. And then I will ask Ms. Soter and Mr. Perlotti to give us an update on election officials operation and precinct officials, election officials recruitment and training.
So we want to provide you with the update on this because based on the personnel agenda, Mr. Curtis is the manager of the election officials department. And so we want to provide for you how we will successfully meet all the operational needs of his department with him moving on to other opportunities from the board. And so Chantil and I have no doubts that we will meet all of the recruitment training requirements of this department. Happens that actually at our meeting on Monday, this board approved a temporary work level for Becky Brake to co-manage the department. And so luckily by chance, we had already had that in the works. And so she now is already in place and will pick up and work with Mr. Curtis to transition on everything that he's doing. But the other parts of the department, the two assistant managers, they've been in the department for several years now. They know their job functions, they're capable. And I think with that staff, with Becky Brake in place and with Chantil and I, and give credit to Chantil more so than myself, working with that department on a daily basis, we will be able to, with this absence or so close to election day, be successful. Chantil can tell you, based on some of the efforts that we've recently done, some of the numbers that we've reached just in a few short days from last week.
Great, we did get an update yesterday.
Yeah, so I was going to quickly say that in addition to the dashboard numbers and that I provided at the end of yesterday, up until approximately like even 11:30 this morning, we have placed an additional 147 precinct election officials. And also just wanted to point out something that was noted in the information that was helpful information portion of that dashboard. And that is we've had over 2,400 individuals just since Friday afternoon sign up for in-person training. So we have more than enough space available for those workers to take the appropriate class. Some of them are online training sessions, so that's very helpful, this election. We are adding a few as we go, just to provide those that are still out there with options, but so far, no show rate is still staying pretty low, and we'll just really great response in the last few days.
Any questions from Ms. Soter, Mr. Pilati?
More a comment than a question. I know that there were news reports last week of an email that had gone out from that very department. And I appreciate and am aware that you, director, deputy director, were looking into how that occurred. And I know we were subject to some criticism when we were here on Monday, but we didn't address that in open meeting. And so I just want the public to know, I'm confident you are continuing to look into how that occurred. In the meantime, the manager of the department at the time that happened has now resigned. And I just want to express that I know all three of these individuals, Becky Brake, who we did take the action on Monday to make temporary assignment as co-manager, and the two assistant managers, Peter James and Ariane Morrow. And I just want to express from my personal point of view as a board member, the great confidence I have in these individuals, their technical abilities, and their ability to get the job done that this department needs over these next 5 weeks. So thank you for your leadership, your decision, not miss the course of this process.
I'd like to second those comments that you all said.
Thank you, Mr. Frost, Mr. Wondolowski. I guess just on not micromanaging, but Ms. Brake, is this being co-managed once Mr. Curtis leaves, or how do you have accountability there? Who's in charge?
Yeah, so we met with the staff after the meeting on Monday with Becky Brake, as well as all permanent staff from the Department of Election Officials. And at that point, set out that it was going to be a co-management of Becky and Henry, and those two were going to report to directly to Chantel and I, not to each other. And we were dividing up some of the responsibilities within a department so everything could move forward. Now with Mr. Curtis leaving, Becky will be sole manager. She's still on the temporary work assignment, but she is the sole manager of the department, still reporting to Chantel and myself. And the assistant managers will work with her, report to her, to get the job done.
And we have parity in those management positions, with Ms. Brake being a registered Republican and Mr. James being a Democrat.
That's correct. She is that, and Ariane Morrow is a Republican, and Peter James is a Democrat.
Well, I echo Mr. Frost and Mr. Wondolowski's comments. I'm also glad to see you look forward about who's accountable in that department when Mr. Curtis leaves, and I'm certain that all that staff is up to the task. So thanks.
One question, Mr. Chair, if I could, just simply want to make sure the dashboard that we are receiving that gives us the updates on recruitment, placement training, is that posted on the website as well, so the public can see what's going on in terms of our PEO recruitment?
It is not yet, but it will be tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm looking for Robin right now. So we're working on getting that update to place on our homepage.
Okay, I think it's important that we do that, and I do want to echo my colleagues' comments. As far as I'm concerned, we didn't miss a beat. I understand the newspaper reporting, and perhaps they, obviously we can't take every single action out in public, but we certainly have been transparent, and I think we have been. We've been right on top of the situation, and I appreciate the work of the staff for taking care of these items. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to the final agenda item we have here is the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections proposal regarding drop-off absentee ballots. Mr. Wondolowski, you'd like that as an agenda item? I'll defer to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. As we know from Monday afternoon, an order came down from the court to the Secretary of State, and I just will read this one excerpt from this. It says, in the meantime, the court orders the Secretary of State to work closely with the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections to develop and implement a plan to alleviate the looming crisis for voters who plan to personally deliver their ballots for the November 3rd election rather than returning them by mail. And the SOS has been ordered to report on that by 4 p.m. today. Mark, will you had communication with the Secretary of State. Will you brief us on how that went?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wondolowski. The Secretary of State first alerted me of the decision on Friday the 25th and provided me a copy of the opinion and said, you want to get back in touch on Monday to discuss. I responded, letting the AG's office know that the board was meeting at its regular scheduled session on that Monday, and invited or extended on behalf of the board an opportunity for them to potentially address the board. The Attorney General's office said, well, I'll do my best. I still need to talk with the client, and I'll get back to you with whether or not anyone will be available or prepared to address the board and the court's decision. That Monday morning, the board convened at 9:30. Shortly received an email after the board session commenced, stating that they're still reviewing the decision and discussing internally on how to address the court's opinion, and that nobody would be available to meet the board. They weren't prepared to address the board at that time. And then after the board's meeting, we went into recess, and I received a call approximately 2:30 from the Attorney General's office, stating that they had reviewed the court's opinion and taken a second look at the plan that this board approved on September 14th for the temporary collection sites at Campus International at 3100 Chester and at various libraries throughout the county. And that the Secretary of State's office was willing to approve the plan to the limited extent of the Campus International site. The Secretary of State was not willing to approve the temporary sites at the libraries due to the pending litigation going on in Franklin County. And
Has nothing to do with the pending litigation going on, but thank you. This is not, Mr. Chairman, this is not, I don't believe what's happened here is what the Secretary of State was ordered to do, which is to work closely, and it says, work closely with the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections to develop and implement a plan. Just dictating to us and giving us one more location is not going to alleviate the issue that we know we're going to have with the dropping off of ballots. So I called for the meeting today, and I think it's only appropriate that our attorney reaches out to the judge to let him know that what he has ordered him to do, he is not doing. I'm not going to talk about anybody personally here. I have a great deal of respect for all parties involved, but this is going to cause us problems, and we need to address it. And just to be told we have one more location. This was a bipartisan plan. It's put together with Democrat and Republican and two of our chief administrators here, one D and one R, and it addresses the collection of ballots. That's our administrative role here. It's administering this election, making sure the ballots are collected and making sure the votes are counted. This is never about partisanship. I don't understand why we cannot do what we proposed, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the pending litigation. That is about drop boxes. This is bipartisan groups of teams of people going out and collecting the ballots. So I would like to give our attorney the ability to communicate that with the court. Mark?
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for bringing us back together at this time to talk about it. I do continue to support the concept that we have more broad locations for drop-offs. That said, I respect the position of the secretary that there are multiple instances of litigation ongoing. I know that having an off-site location adjacent here helps with one problem, which is the logistical jam up in our back parking lot. That helps alleviate that. And that does not vary from the statewide rule that every board of elections really just has one drop-off point. Either it's board building or a separate early voting site. You have kind of one or the other that you're able to do. So I respect the secretary's position of where they are right now, and I feel that, having heard from Mr. Musson, that the secretary's attorneys have talked with our attorneys, that this is the decision of the secretary of the plan we're able to have at this point. I feel he met the letter and spirit of what the judge wanted him to do, but I'll say on the record here, I still don't give up hope that we might end up, after all this litigation is resolved, because I do think it's intertwined, because we have a judge opining on us right here, it does continue to be my hope that before whatever kind of the drop dead date is for us in a couple of weeks, that we may get the authorization to have multiple drop-off locations that are staffed. That's separate from the issue of drop boxes. I don't want to go down that road today, but we had bipartisan support here for multiple staff drop-off locations on regular days, multiple days between mid-October and the election. And that concept, we supported in bipartisan fashion when we passed it. We developed it in bipartisan fashion, and I still continue to support that today. I hope that we get the authorization to do it before another week or week and a half pass.
Mr. Chairman, the thought of sending out 350,000 ballots over a 3 or 4 day period, and then the thought of those ballots being filled out over the weekend and many of them coming back to those two locations is really frightening, to be honest with you. I'm worried about pedestrians walking in the street, people on their cell phones, traffic jams, car accidents that could all occur because we're going to have mobs of people coming down here to drop their ballot off. And I do believe a lot of people are going to take advantage of the ability to drop their ballot off. At least a third of those voters, we could assume, will do that. 100,000, 125,000 people that are going to come down here specific times. So I'm very concerned about it. I do not believe that he worked with us to develop and implement a plan. He just allowed us to have one more location. And it's concerning.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Anna Jo, you have any?
Yeah, I
comments?
do. I do have a few thoughts. I mean, I actually gave testimony in that litigation, and the concern was absolutely around the congestion, the traffic, and the potential safety risk. I really wish we could have had some dialogue with our Secretary of State to understand the logic behind simply adding the one location, because I actually have some concerns about that. I mean, part of our entire plan, it seemed to me, it was a solution that was more global for a reason, because it did allow voters to have other alternatives away from our site. And in the Chester location, I mean, obviously we had a plan for that, and I'm pleased that we can at least implement some of that. But I would echo Dave Wondolowski's comments. I'm not so sure that we've alleviated the congestion and the traffic and the safety issue. Arguably Chester is, I mean, that's even more traffic down on Chester by the highway. So I think in combination with the other sites that we had identified, the plan would be much more workable than just simply saying, okay, well, you can have the Chester piece of that plan. I do think, though, the spirit of the order was that, we work cooperatively and closely. And no offense to counsel, I know our counsel for the Secretary of State and our counsel can certainly have discussions, but given the urgency about this issue, the importance of this issue, it really is disheartening to me that we couldn't have had some Zoom call with our Secretary of State. He is our chief elections official. I really would like to understand what the difficulty is with the other sites, because without having the ability to kind of have that conversation with him, it doesn't. I don't really understand what the dilemma or what the issue is. And again, I think adding the one site is helpful, but I am of the view that we need a full implementation of the plan that we voted on and that our staff members, our leadership brought to us. And I just wish that we could have had our Secretary of State take the time to convene with us for just directly instead of just through counsel. So I would hope that we would, and I think time is we don't have a lot of time here for a real practical solution that will help us in administering the election and really help the voters. I mean, and not burden the voters. So I wish we could have a more direct conversation with the Secretary of State to understand what the problem is with implementing our complete plan.
Mr. Chairman, this is a safety issue that I want to bring up right now that just happened today. When I was coming into the parking lot, thank God I was paying attention, because there's a van parked right beside the drop box. And when I came around the van, thank God I saw Betty Edwards prior to that, because I may have just hit her coming around the corner. We should talk about that parking lot in preparation for this, and maybe make sure that in those first four or maybe 6 spots, that taller vehicle or van should not be parked there because of the tight turn, the tight radius. You can miss somebody walking to the door, getting out of their car from this side of the parking lot here, and somebody could get hit, especially with people pulling into this parking lot that don't know that. If there are county vans, which I believe it was a county van that was parked there, we could have an accident in the parking lot. So I would, we do need to address that.
Actually, some of these, so this lot primarily next week will be for ADA parking, and we will have off-site parking at Campus International and storage facility across. But with that, we've already think about actually the spots that are right next to the ballot box, the spots that are right next to the aprons, those are coned off. No one even parks there at all, in part for site reasons. And then people trying to back in and out and trying to just make that a little bit safer. And actually against the north fence, the back fence, I think we're gonna do some curbside. That's where we'll do that. Maybe not even have them pull in, kind of like pull in so they're parallel. But we won't be able to use the lot to the full capacity that we do now for safety reasons. Because it is, you have voters coming out of the building, people coming through to try to park. If they don't realize, if we are able to collect ballots down there, some are going to come in there. So there's a lot of activity going on in that tight parking lot.
So I guess I appreciate Mr. Wallace's comment. We're going to move some cars out of there. Is that correct? Our employees park there. We're going to have them park somewhere else after early voting begins?
So our employees will be parking at Channel 5. However, this lot will get converted to ADA. So if you have a placard, you'll park. So it'll fill back up again.
Okay. And we'll be in a position, if need to have curbside drop off even beginning the 12th of October. I mean, if we find that dozens or tens of dozens of people are coming down trying to drop off their ballots, right? We'll be in a position to
I
alleviate
think
that traffic
that,
jam?
that actually is the purpose of the Campus
Yeah.
International lot, is to have them just actually drive through that lot, and to hopefully not get them to drive through our parking lot, to keep this for ADA parking. I mean, we can't move our ballot boxes in the back lot, it's really, but to keep that as a drive-through.
I know we can't, but on election day or the day before, we have people actually in each 30th bipartisan teams collecting ballots and bringing them to the ballot box.
They collect them into a temporary bag, and that bag goes right. So we're trying to, part of this plan is you have the site down here to try to keep people from pulling into this lot unless they're ADA or if it's after hours, and to release some of the pressure on this box. And then the thought also then was the satellites are to relieve the pressure on both of those boxes by having even less vehicle traffic come down here. So it all kind of works together to make it happen. But yes, what we want to see in this lot really are individuals who take advantage of curbside voting and ADA parking. And because when voters will come in through the front door, they're going to exit out the back door. So then you have voters coming out, again, with cars leaving and the line, if it's like it is in the past, when we anticipate, we'll go down the sidewalk, we'll have to keep the aprons. I mean, there's a lot going on with people on foot, people on vehicles.
We're going to be ready to do this by October 12th, I imagine, because we're dropping on the 6th. I mean, ballots begin
Yes.
and we'll get a sense of how typically we wouldn't get that sort of activity that quickly after the drop in any other election year.
Yeah, this is.
Well, the problem is nothing's typical in this election. I mean, we've got, we're in the middle of a pandemic and we have unprecedented numbers of vote by mail applications going out, and presumably that would yield an unprecedented amount of them being returned. I did wonder though, just a question, if I might, Mr. Chair, ask whether or not to our counsel, Attorney Musson, did we receive anything in writing from the Secretary of State's office? Or has the only communication been with you and counsel verbally? Did we receive something in writing from the Secretary?
No, nothing of substance in writing, only orally over the phone.
So I may just add, I appreciate my members' thoughtful comments on this subject. I am certain, and I understand your point, Mr. Wondolowski, in talking about it, maybe having Mr. Musson address the court. I am bet a house to a hutch. The court is aware of the plan, and they are aware of the dynamics of how the plan was presented. And because we're a public body and the input, with the input we had into this. So I'm going to defer to the judge. The judge will decide whether this is appropriate, whether the interaction was appropriate, and whether the whole process. I mean, we're not a party to this litigation, nor is our attorney. And so I just think, while I appreciate your comments, they've taken a portion of the plan that was adopted and submitted it to the court, and the court will decide whether that's acceptable or not. I mean, that's where I think we're at. And I understand why some of my colleagues might not be pleased by that, but that's what the secretary and his attorneys decided to do. So I'm going to defer to that.
Yeah. I appreciate your comments too, Mr. Chair. I would just like to go on the record though as saying and requesting that, really making the request for our Secretary of State to have a little more direct communication with us about it. I mean, we're not a party, obviously, to that lawsuit. We are working for our voters, and he is our chief elections official. And I would request and encourage that we encourage him to come and have a direct conversation with us and work with us more closely, at least to help us understand, his position about limiting our proposal if he so chooses to maintain that position.
Thank you. Ms. Chappelle, any other questions or comments?
Just one more, just for the record. Just hard for me to understand. This is not costing his office anything. It's well within the confines of our budget. The plan was voted on by all four of us unanimously, and I'm just having a hard time understanding, why we can't implement what we all decided was best for this board. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wondolowski, Ms. Chappelle, Mr. Frost. Are there any other matters to come before this body today? Okay, I just defer to you. Should we continue in recess, or I don't know that there's any reason to. We're meeting on October 19th, correct?
Correct.
All right, then I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you. All have a wonderful day.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaking of toasting.